Welcome everyone, it's Shari Carroll for SimonsStamp.com, and love is in the air with this floral heart on a vignette box. So I'm starting off with some cardstocks, and they're in some springy colors because that's what I'm ready for. So I have 3 colors of pink. I also have some yellow, orange, red, and some green for the leaves. I'll be using these Simons Stamp dies, and I'm going to be cutting out a lot of little flowers in each of those colors to put onto my project. So these are 3 dies. They are from Simons Stamp. I do have them listed in the description box below, so you can check them out and pick them up if you like this project. I'm also going to be using a vignette box from Tim Holtz, and I always end up with this little 4-inch piece because I use the 6-inch piece first. And I thought I would use this up by creating this little project, and it's going to be really easy. I'm going to be putting a heart on here, and this is from the Simons Stamp Nested Heart dies, and it's just the perfect size for this box. I'll be painting the box, and I'm using the Dina Wakley black gesso, and this is really a smooth gesso that levels out. It's really a nice paint. And I chose black because I think that the flowers are really pop in color when they're set on top. So I'm using a Tim Holtz Distress brush, and you can see how this gesso gives you that really great coverage, and you only need to do 1 coat. So I'm going to continue just to paint the top and around the sides of my vignette box. And here's a little tip for you. When you want this to dry, just place that right back onto your jar of gesso. Okay, I'm ready to do some die cutting. So first I'm starting off with the piece of Ballet cardstock, and that's a rainbow splash color. And I'll put a little tape on these to hold them down in place while I die cut. And once I weed out all my little flowers from the cardstock, I'm going to be scooping these up, and I'm going to use my triangle trays for each color. And this will help me make it easier when I go to add them to my project. Next, I've die cut some princess cardstock, and again I'm using another triangle tray, and I want to show you that I'm going to snip off the stem of one of the flowers so I can use that as well. I'm finishing up with my flower colors, and I have that triangle tray for each one, and you can see how it looks really pretty on my desktop. I'm going to be putting these aside, and then I'm going to start cutting the leaves. I'm cutting out 2 of these branch of leaves because it's a really nice big die, and it's got really nice small leaves. So once I weed this from the cardstock, I'm going to start trimming up those branches and snipping them off, since I'll be using probably individual leaves and maybe a couple of those stems that might have 2 or 3. While I'm die cutting, I'm also going to die cut my heart from black cardstock, and that's from the set of Nested Hearts dies from Simons Stamp. I'm going to start by gluing down some of these leaves to the black heart. I'm not quite sure where to start and if I might want to adjust this later, but I'm just going to start here. I can always snip these down and move them to another place, but I want some greens to sit under the flowers, so just using my Simons Craft Tacky Glue is what I'm going to use to apply all my flowers and greens. Now that I have some of my greens down on my heart, I'm going to fold these petals up, and this is the larger flower, and what ends up happening, it gets this little base in the back side, and now I can start building my flowers. So I'm just going to start with 1. And since I'm left-handed, I am going to work from the right to the left because I can see where I'm putting the glue and where the flower is going to fit. So I'm going to continue going through some of these flower colors and just start adding them to that right side. This process goes really quickly, and it's really nice to have that variety of color, so you won't really have the same colors sitting next to each other while you're working this out. If you're right-handed, you may want to start on the left side, and that'll help you to lay out your project as you go. I'm also using a pick tool, and I'm making sure that that center is sitting nice and flat to the background. And as I go, I'm going to start adding in some leaves, and I'm just putting a little bit of glue to the stem portion, and I can fit this right next to a flower, and I've curved it with my finger so that it'll stand up next to the flower. And I'll continue adding flowers and leaves to fill this up. When I first started this, I wasn't sure how many of the flowers I would need, so I went back and I cut a few more sheets of orange, yellow, and red to fill in. I have used a few of the little pieces, those little tiny flowers, to fill in between some of those other flowers. Once your glue has dried a bit, you might be able to fluff around your flowers and see if there's any open holes or any areas that you need to add some in. And I found one right at the edge here. I want to bring the peak of this heart up a little bit. And so I'm just going to place that in. And again, I'm going to use that poke tool and I can push that in as far as I need to. And I couldn't wait to see how this is going to look against that black box. And I think it's stunning with the contrast of colors. And one of the things I noticed is that I need to add a few more greens, and I can just add these to the back just to give me some balance on where those greens peek through on the finished heart. Now that I'm happy with this, I'm going to be using the Simon glue all over the back, and I'm going to make sure I hit all those leaves and all the outline of the heart, and then I'll add some to the center. And now I can place this in the center of the box, and since I've used the wet glue, I can move this around until I have it positioned like I want it. And to make sure that the center portion is pressed down onto my wood box, I'm just going to use the poke tool again and poke some of the centers of the flowers to push it down. And now to add some bling and centers to my flowers, I'm going to start off with the orange ones. And I have the warm tones of Dazzling Gems from Simon Says Stamp. And I picked out some of the medium-sized orange ones, and I'll just be placing these into the flower centers. The tip of this glue is really perfect to get into those little tiny crevices of those flowers. And right now I'm adding glue to the center of all of the dull pink ones. And for this, I'll be using that deeper pink color to fill in those little centers. And for the Ballet color of the paper, I am using Bubblegum Dazzling Gems since it's a soft pink and it won't clash with my paper. With everything glued in place, it's time for my message, and I'm using To Love, and this is a CZ little banner set, and this does have the little shadow that goes behind. So I have die cut my pieces. My shadow is from silver, and my word message To Love is from black cardstock. The first thing I want to do with this is to poke out the letters, and I'm not going to be poking out the O's, so that hopefully it'll help me set that center of the O down once I put it on top of the silver. So I'm just using that poke tool and piercing and removing those letters. And next I'll be using my Simon glue all over the back of this black piece, and I want to make sure that I get the center of those O's to hopefully hold those in place for when I put this on top of the silver. And it didn't work out so well. When I went to remove the O, my little center piece came out. I didn't let the glue dry enough, so now I'm pulling out the center of that O, and I'm going to place it right back in the center onto that silver paper. And then I can scoot it around with my poke tool. And once my banner was complete, I added some Simon glue all to the back, and now I'm going to place it in the lower portion of my project. And I'm going to press this down and allow the glue to touch the top of those flowers. What I ended up doing to make sure that it dried completely is I turned my whole project upside down, and then I placed my jar of gesso inside until the glue was dry. So I hope you've enjoyed this project. It was super fun to make. It's making me feel like spring is just around the corner, although I know I have months to wait. I do have all my supplies listed in the description box below, and I hope I've inspired you to make one for yourself or for a loved one. And as always, thanks so much for watching.
Hi there, I'm Heidi, Simon's mama and founder at simonsaysstamp.com. Thank you so much for watching our video. If you like what you just saw, be sure to press the thumbs up and subscribe to see more great content.